Imagine this, you are casually scrolling through your favorite website, leaving a message or searching for something, and without even knowing it, you've just been hacked. No clicking shady links, no downloading weird files, just you in the website that you thought you could trust. This is the power of cross-site scripting. A vulnerability so sneaky that it's one of the most common ways hackers use to steal your information or take over your accounts. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how it works, and by the end of this video, you will see it in action. So, without further ado, let's get to it. So, what is cross-site scripting? Well, cross-site scripting is a vulnerability that allows attackers inject malicious payloads, typically in JavaScript, into websites. Then, these scripts run in the browsers of users who interact with the vulnerable website. Now, depending on the type of cross-site scripting vulnerability and the attacker's payload, different actions can be performed, such as stealing sensitive information, defacing the website, and even redirect users into malicious websites. When cross-site scripting was discovered, many websites were too trusting and didn't properly sanitize user input. This allowed attackers to inject malicious code into a website. This malicious code could perform actions like showing pop-up alerts to demonstrate the vulnerability, stealing cookies used to impersonate users or hijacking sessions, and redirecting users to fake or malicious websites. So the question is, why is it called cross-site scripting? The name cross-site scripting was originally chosen because early attacks often involved two websites. A malicious website controlled by the hacker and the real website that the victim was visiting. Now, what happens in this scenario where you have two websites is a hacker creates a fake link that is similar to the real one but contains malicious input. Then he sends this fake but realistic link to the users, for instance through email. The victim clicks on it and is taken to the real website. Now, because the real website doesn't properly sanitize user input, the malicious payload is executed in the background in the victim's browser. So, in other words, this was called cross-site scripting because the malicious payload was able to cross boundaries from an untrusted source, which is the hacker, into a trusted context, which is the website of the victim's browser. However, over time, hackers realized that cross-site scripting could also occur entirely within a single website. This means that they no longer need to rely on a crafted link that a victim might click. Today, attackers can inject malicious scripts directly into a website and wait for users to visit the affected page, click on a link within the website, or even trigger the script by hovering an element with their mouse. This makes cross-site scripting even more dangerous because users don't need to click on suspicious links sent to their email to be hacked. Instead, the attack happens on websites they trust, making it harder for users to recognize or avoid threats. Now, because of this evolution, cross-site scripting can be categorized in three main categories. One category is stored cross-site scripting, also known as persistent. Stored cross-site scripting occurs when a malicious payload is saved in the website server and later executed in the browsers of users who visit the affected page. A common example is a comment section, where an attacker might post a comment with malicious JavaScript. If the website doesn't properly sanitize user inputs, the malicious script is saved on the server. When other users visit the page, the malicious payload is executed on the browsers of those users. This can result in actions like stealing cookies, defacing the page, or even redirecting users to malicious websites. In simple terms, stored cross-site scripting happens when a website has user input fields, like a comment section or a profile editor, that saves user-provided data on its server. The key difference is that the malicious payload is stored on the server and delivered to multiple users, which is why it's called stored cross-site scripting or persistent. Another category is reflected cross-site scripting, also known as non-persistent. Now, reflected cross-site scripting, on the other hand, occurs when an attacker injects malicious payloads into a website and the website reflects it back in the response without storing it. The malicious payload is not saved on the website server, hence the non-persistent, and is reflected to the user immediately, which is why it's called reflected. For example, an attacker might craft a link that looks legitimate but includes malicious input in a query parameter. The attacker then delivers the crafted link to the victim, often via email or social media, and when the victim clicks on the link, the website processes the malicious input and reflects it back in the response. Lastly, the victim's browser executes the payload as if it were legitimate content from the website. Now, our last category is called DOM-Based attack. Before I explain how this attack works, it's important to understand what is DOM. So, DOM stands for Document Object Model, and it's like the blueprint of a web page. So it defines the structure, the content, the elements of the page, things like buttons, text boxes, images, and more. Your browser creates the DOM to display the web page and let you interact with it. Okay, now that you know a little bit more about DOM, it's time to understand how DOM-based attacks work. So, websites often use JavaScript to make their pages dynamic. For example, JavaScript might update a page with data from a URL or respond to user actions like clicking a button. So, in a DOM-based attack, the attacker takes advantage of insecure JavaScript on the website to execute malicious code directly in the user's browser. And here is how it works. The attacker finds a part of the website that uses JavaScript to process user input, like a search bar or a URL parameter. The website's JavaScript doesn't properly sanitize the input, which makes it vulnerable. The attacker then creates a malicious URL. The URL looks like it leads to a legitimate page, but it contains a payload designed to exploit the website's JavaScript. The attacker sends this link to the victim, often through email or social media, and when the victim clicks on the link, the browser processes the URL, the website's JavaScript dynamically updates the DOM with the malicious input from the URL, and the browser executes the payload, believing it to be part of the legitimate page. This makes DOM-based cross-site scripting unique because, unlike other types of cross-site scripting, it happens entirely on the browser and never interacts with the server. So, to recap, in stored cross-site scripting, the payload is sent to the server. In reflected cross-site scripting, the payload is sent to the server but reflected back in the response. And in DOM-based cross-site scripting, the payload stays entirely in the browser and never interacts with the server. Okay guys, now that we have covered the theory, let's see these vulnerabilities in action. First, let's see an example of stored cross-site scripting. The first thing that you can do is go through the website and see if it has user input fields. So as you can see, we do not have any user input field here, but we have a lot of comments. Now, don't give up if you do not see any user input field right away, and this is because, for instance, in this case, we have a lot of posts, and usually posts have comment sections. So let's click on one of these posts. Now, we will leave a comment with a simple payload, for instance this one, and if you want to know about other payloads, you can search on Google cross-site scripting payloads, for instance, and use the ones that you find there. Now, we need to leave a name, doesn't matter which one, an email. Now let's post this comment and see if this field is vulnerable to cross-site scripting. And as you can see, this field is vulnerable to cross-site scripting, and this happens because we commented this post with a malicious payload. This comment field isn't sanitized, and because of that our comment is saved on the server. And when someone reads our comment, the payload is executed, and this can affect a lot of people depending on how many people read our comment. Okay, now let's see one example of reflected cross-site scripting. As you can see in this challenge, we have already here a user input field. Now let's see if it's vulnerable to cross-site scripting, and to do that we can use a simple payload like this one. So we search for it, and as you can see, it is vulnerable because it reflects right away our payload. Now we could further exploit this by crafting a malicious link and send it to people and retrieve their cookies. Our last practical example is the DOM-based one. Now, before we move on, read this carefully because this will help you exploit the vulnerability. But let me just tell you that the location.search represents the query string in the URL. So if you click on access the lab and you will search for something like travel, for instance, it doesn't matter, and you go to the URL, you will see that the query string begins with a question mark, search, and ends with an equal sign. This is the query string. Now, going back, you can see that you have here also a document.write. Now, the document.write insecurely writes the data from location.search, which is our query string, and the data from our query string is, in this case, travel. Now, the travel will be written directly into the DOM without sanitization, making it vulnerable to cross-site scripting. So, if you think, you can put instead of travel here your payload, because you already know that your payload will be written directly into the DOM without sanitization, and this will execute our payload. So I will insert this simple payload, and before I click enter and we see what's the output, let me just explain that this is very similar to the previous payloads. However, the difference is that we have here at the beginning a quote and a greater than sign. And this is because these signs will end any existing HTML tag the page was using to display your input. Now we can run our payload and see what happens. And as you can see, this site is vulnerable to cross-site scripting. And this is it, guys. This is cross-site scripting, but just a little bit of it because there's a lot more to it than this. If you want to practice and learn more about cross-site scripting, you can use Portfigure Academy and BWeb, which you can install on your VM with my help by watching this video here. I also help debug some code errors, so your BWeb works in the way it's supposed to. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, consider subscribing to this channel for more content like this. See you next time, stay curious, stay safe, and happy learning! Bye bye!